Hello, brief calculus students. Okay, so this week we are getting ready for our first test in this class, and I want to make sure everybody feels comfortable knowing what to expect and knowing how to prepare. So, you have already gone down to here and found that we're here in test number one review section right now. And what you're seeing here is the first part here is a review sheet. Now, the key thing you need to understand about this is a small sample of the types of problems that you may see on the test. They're not exactly the problems. They may not even be the same problems at all. But what I want you to understand is these are the key ideas. So when you're studying section 2.1, these are the three main ideas you should be keeping in mind. So making sure you are understanding how to find average rate of change and just be able to discuss its meaning, being able to describe it in words, being able to write sentences about it. Meaning is important. Okay, then also know what the average rate of change looks like on a graph, aka a secant line, so on and so forth. So as you're studying, make sure you really pay attention to these key ideas. Make sure you can do those things. Now, I've given you a few problems to help get the math juices going again. Make sure you're kind of remembering the sections, but don't expect these problems to mirror what's going to be on your test. They might be something different. But what I can guarantee you is it's going to talk about these three things. Now, I may not be able to do every single bullet point here, but for every problem on the test, you should be able to point back and say, oh, yeah, that was this one right here, or something like that. You should be able to identify which of these key ideas every problem is referring to. Okay? Now, you'll notice that continues on for each section. Each section has its key ideas, and then there's a few practice problems. Now, when we go back to the main page, you'll see here there's walkthroughs. So here what you'll see is if you needed help doing one of the problems, or if you want to see if you did it right, well, that's what these walkthroughs are for. These videos will take you through every problem that's in the review. Now, so how to study. You do this walkthrough, absolutely, but this is not enough. You need to go back through your website homework and not your website, excuse me. You need to go back through your MAthAS homework and make sure that you understood how to do everything. And then, you also need to go back through the book problems. Go back into every section and look at the problems in the back of every section and at least thought about them. Even if you didn't know if they're right or wrong, do you understand what they're saying? You know, if you did it, you don't know if you got it right or wrong, at least you understand what the problem's asking for. Do you have an idea of how to attempt it? So if I happen to pull off one of these problems and put it on the test, have you at least thought about it? You never know if you'll get it right or wrong unless you check the answers, or you can email me and ask me if you got it right or wrong. That'll tell you. But at least have thought about it so it doesn't come out of the blue and so if you don't know what something means, ask. Okay, now, so that's how you review. That's how you're going to review. You're going to do all the book problems for each of the sections, and you're going to do your MAthAS homework and look at that stuff, and make sure you're focusing on those bullet points. Now, what is your test going to look like? Because this is the next most important part. How you prepare should be how you test. So I want you to understand what you're going to be seeing. Now, I can't show you the test,
but I will go ahead and give you an idea of what you're going to be seeing. And it's essentially, if I remember correctly, you're going to be seeing the problems one at a time. So the problems will look identical to that of a MAthAS assignment, except you're going to say, I'm going to do problem number one, and then I'm going to do, and then you click submit for the problem, and then it brings you to the next question. And there is a practice test that's not graded, so you can go into it and see what a test is going to feel like before you go in and take your first test that's actually graded. So, I think it's number one, and then down at the bottom it says submit or something like that. Now, the next important thing to know is that when you submit your problem, you're not going to see if you got it right or wrong, because during a test in class you wouldn't see if it's right or wrong. So that's one little piece of information that might be a little different. But the other piece is you can always come back and retry any of the problems during the time limit of the test. The one negative is you have to go through all of them. When you finish, you have to start back at problem number one and then click all the way through. So you might want to make a note of which problems do I want to go back to. It's not as easy to just kind of like scan a paper and see what problem you have a little star by. So you might need to say, oh, okay, problem number one, and then on paper, on your scratch paper, note, this is the problem I need to go back to. The next thing, now this is the really important thing. The grades you get in MAthAS, the grades that you're not even seeing what your grades are anyway, but the grades you earn don't matter. No, not at all. I am not grading this test based off of an answer in MAthAS. I am grading it based off of your work. So it is incredibly important you are on paper doing your work for problem number 1. Then, when you're done with problem number 1, do your work for problem number 2. Now, the one thing I hate and do not ever want to see is when you're doing your work, you say, oh, no, I don't want to do that. You scratch it out. No. That's why they invented erasers. Or get a new piece of paper. Okay? The next thing is your work needs to be in a neat and orderly fashion. It needs to go problem number 1, then problem number 2, then problem number 3, then problem number 4. So have lots of paper, so that way if you need to, you can just interject new pieces of paper instead of trying to scratch out and things getting very messy. Because this is where you'll be earning your grade. I will be grading your work on your paper, just like if it was a normal test that you're taking with me in class. So, how do you get the paper to me? Well, we are going to use an app that's called OneNote. It is a part of the Microsoft Office suite. The next thing, why do I do this? Well, I want to grade your work because math isn't about getting a right answer. It's about the process and getting the right answer. And I don't want you to feel super stressed that if you miss a negative sign, you went from 100% on a problem to a 0 on a problem. No, that's not how it works. Next thing is I will be able to give you feedback as I go through and grade your test in OneNote. I will be able to write all over it and kind of circle what you did wrong and all that kind of stuff. So if it's in OneNote, it's much easier for me to edit and give feedback.